I thought it would be fun coming out of the holiday season to just compare and contrast the type of Christmas that our current president, and you might have forgotten, it's Joe Biden, he's still technically president for a little bit, and the incoming president had. And so there are some subtle differences in the way they greeted the season or whatever. I'm not gonna run through all of what Donald Trump did, but you need to understand that he sat down on Truth Social and he bleated 30 times in a row, which is not as bad as what Elon Musk does on a daily basis. I don't think you should be locked up for sending 30 bleats. I think that you should probably be put under some sort of watch by some sort of medical institution. But anyway, he had a lot to say about the radical left lunatics and Justin Trudeau and just a whole lot of stuff. Meanwhile, in the bottom there, you can see that Joe Biden, like, he signed bills. They're not the most major bills in the world, but like, he did actual stuff. Like, again, not huge stuff, and he's backed off of some of his priorities, but like, I don't know, as we transition from one period of American politics into the next, I'm worried about what this is gonna be like and my mental capacity to deal with it because, Biden did some stuff. We gave him credit recently, a couple days ago. He did the thing we asked, which was to pardon not everybody, but basically everybody on federal death row. That was good. And so let's jump into that. Again, I don't want to read all of Trump's bleats or whatever. I'll lose my GD mind. But he was tweeting out on Christmas how unfair it was that he won't get to kill a couple dozen people, which seems like a strange way. I'm not the biggest Christian in the world or whatever, but he said, as soon as I am inaugurated, I will direct the Justice Department to vigorously pursue the death penalty to protect American families and children from violent rapists, murderers, and monsters. We will be a nation of law and order again. Because he can't kill those people. And so he's very mad. And he bleated out more about it, about the commuting of the death sentence, of the worst killers in our country. And we've been having a national conversation over the last month or so, haven't we, about killers and who gets labeled a killer and who kills lots of people as like sort of their official job as part of a corporation, but doesn't get labeled as a killer. I don't know that those are the worst killers. They're bad killers. They're bad people. And they shouldn't walk free, by the way. And also they're not going to. That's not how the pardons actually work. I don't know why it's so important to him on Christmas that these people die soon, but that was very much front of mind for him. And he's gonna get back in and he is going to push for it. And it's a reminder not just of how Biden and Trump are different on the topic of like the death penalty. Not even 100% different, by the way, because Joe Biden did leave 3 people on death row. He still wants them to get the death penalty. But it's also a reminder that Donald Trump understands, or at least thinks, maybe we'll disagree about this, that there is just a constant desire for blood among his base. They just want to see people being killed. Bad people or whatever, bad because they're murderers or bad because they're from South America, whatever. They want to see them die, and he is gonna promise on a daily basis the people you don't like are gonna be killed. And I think at the end of the day, Francesca, that's what Christmas is really about. What do you think?
Yeah, it's not about second chances. It's not about, loving your fellow man or woman or, forgiveness or anything else that, I don't know, the guy who's the guy who was born on Christmas? I keep on remembering it's like Jason or something. I'm pretty sure it was Jason. And I feel like they just forget all the teachings of Jeff. It's Jeff.
It was something like that. It had a J sound.
Yeah, and so, of course, Donald Trump, as we talked about, had executed a record number of prisoners on death row when he left. So it's just amazing that we could even juxtapose Biden and Donald Trump, right? When we talk about immigration, let's juxtapose them because they're pretty similar. Talk about Gaza, pretty similar. When you come to things like who they're pardoning and who they're deciding to execute or commute the sentences of, which again, as you mentioned, simply means that they remain in prison for life. That's a different discussion. But it's like, no, Trump pardoned a bunch of white collar criminals, including people who helped him effectively steal the 2016 election in part, right? And worked with foreign governments to do so. Friends of his who were indicted on financial crimes and were, serving time or whatnot. And then he murdered 13 people on death row. Biden, okay, you've got Hunter in there, but there's also been, a lot of commutations and pardons for people who were convicted of nonviolent offenses, right? Yes, there was that judge, which like, dude, you should have read between the lines.
Yeah.
Don't exonerate, don't let off or pardon that judge who was getting kickbacks for like putting kids in jail. That's bad. But the rest of them was like, all right, this is good. Let's keep going. There's still time for more. And then he's saving the lives of 37 people who are on death row. And personally, as someone who doesn't believe in murder, I sure as hell don't believe that the state has the right to murder, because I don't believe in murder. You see how that works? I don't believe in an eye for an eye. I don't believe in the murder it'll teach broader society never to murder, that murder is wrong. No, and that's not how it works. That's not how violence works. Hello, history of this country. So it is a broader question, but it really comes down to, again, like how we view, and this is fallen, right, John? We don't talk about, capital punishment as much as we should. We don't talk about, as the progressive left, like even whether people should be in prison for the rest of their lives. Like what should happen to them? What about, the ability to rehabilitate yourself? What about programs? What about, maybe it's not like, full freedom, but it's some kind of ability to re-enter society and give people second chances. Yes, even if they did heinous crimes. Yes, that's personally what I believe. But hell, I don't know. I guess I'd follow Jason too much.
I think it's about the right length. But anyway, yeah, it isn't something that we've had a big conversation about. And perhaps one of the reasons we haven't had it for at least a few years is because we've had a president in the White House who wasn't dead. He didn't get, an old man boner every time he had, the power of life and death over someone.
No.
Whereas Donald Trump, I just kind of feel like, as a general rule, if your society finds itself in a place where Donald Trump is deciding who lives and dies, I don't think that's good. I think that you've gone astray as a society. And it's just so strange that we live in a place where, if you steal from the wrong convenience store, you can be executed on the street by a cop via knee or whatever. But if you spend $250 million bribing politicians, that's cool, not even illegal, nothing to see here. The scale of the crime it can be so weird. He talks in his tweets about these criminals and everything. He doesn't say, but he obviously means poor rapists, poor murderers, poor monsters,
of course,
should be put to death by the state. Now, if they were killing far more people, but doing it in a fancy suit, high up in the air in a skyscraper or whatever, then they're actually heroes. They'll be at the inauguration. They're not going to be put to death or anything like that.
They don't have to be in a skyscraper, John. They could be in a subway and they could be choking out an unhoused mentally ill person.
Yeah, as long as it's the right person they're killing, yeah.
As long as it's the right person. Let's remember that Donald Trump came onto the political scene calling for the death penalty for the Central Park Five, who were wrongly accused and imprisoned and served time for murder. And they're currently suing Donald Trump for defamation over that. But again, this is who he is, relishes in the capital punishment and murder, specifically, as you're saying, poor people, black people, youth.
Yeah, and I just want to briefly mention, I've been saying for a while, we need to learn lessons, and I am trying to learn lessons, okay? And so John 1.0 obviously was against the death penalty, but John 2.0, Johnny Damage, needs to learn to compromise. And so, look, I don't want to all of a sudden jump into supporting the death penalty for literally everything, but he does make a point in his tweet that violent rapists perhaps should get the death penalty. And so what if you had a violent rapist? What if you had someone who had sexually assaulted dozens of women? What if you had someone that in broad daylight in a fancy department store just forced someone into a hidden place where no one could see and then forced himself on? Maybe then they should be put to death by the state, as a compromise. I want to work with them. This is their philosophy. He thinks violent rapists should be put to death. I think maybe a test case, a cautionary tail for other potential violent rapists, that there are actually consequences for that. I have one in mind. You feel free to insert one, whoever you think. Now, obviously, this wouldn't just be some baseless accusation. You would have had to have been adjudicated by a jury as a violent rapist, obviously. But then I think we can all agree you should be put to death by the state. Can we all agree on that, MAGA?
I think we can. I like the idea that finally we're asking what rapists were wearing when they did the crime. And if they're wearing Brooks Brothers, well, let them go.
Obviously. Members make a difference here at TYT. You help make the show happen, and we see you in the chat with your loyalty badge. Click the join button to become a member today.